With infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space. Yet across an immense ethereal gulf, minds that are to our minds, ours as the beasts in the jungle, intellects vast, cool, and unsympathetic, regarded this earth with envious eyes, slowly and surely drew their plans against it.
You are listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York, the CJ Mars Radio Network.
We are live on WCJV Digital Broadcasting out of Youngstown, New York. You're listening to Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio with your host, Roger Belt. And tonight we're doing a little round table with Frank Lee and Kat Hobson. They're both hosts here on the network. And Frank has some interesting things to talk about.
And we're pumped out.
But, yeah, awesome. I don't know how you would go about that, but it would be. I'll let Frank talk about what he's talking about here because he's got the idea, but I was thinking about ohms and all that stuff.
Right. Well, first off, thanks to everyone who's tuned in tonight and listening. What I was thinking about was some of Sir William Crookes' works. He was a British mathematician, chemist, and physicist who he had some developments like the cathode ray tube and a few other things we're familiar with. If you had a TV during the 80s or 90s or any time before then, you're familiar with his work. But what a lot of people don't know about him is he was very interested in spirit communications, seances, things like that. Well, particularly in psychical research, he believed that if with the right frequency, that human thoughts could be transmitted the same as the human voice or anything else is transmitted. It was just a matter of tuning it to the right frequency. Well, Nikola Tesla studied some of his work. At very first, Tesla was really skeptical of it, but throughout the years, Tesla had an experience where he had a vision of his mother. He said that in his vision, Tesla had seen what looked like angels. And then he seen one of them slowly morph to look like his mother. And he found out later on that at the same time he was having that vision, she had just passed. So Tesla started to adopt some of his some of these theories and look more into it. And then, of course, Tesla's famous for saying that if we could ever figure out how to study frequency, energy, and vibration, that we could do pretty much anything. But the idea was, if William Crookes was right, and human thoughts can be transmitted, what about spirits? I mean, a spirit is essentially a consciousness outside a human body. But in order for us to perceive it, if you're going to see it, audibly hear it, whatever, it has to get on the same wavelength that we're on. It has to be tuned into the same frequency for us to be able to pick that information up. So what if a transceiver was made that worked on that same frequency? Could it replace ghost boxes?
For direct communication.
I would think it would be better, actually.
Right. So instead of
listening to all the frequencies going back and forth like that, it'd be like picking up the phone and dialing their number.
Right. And I mean, of course, to get it at that low of a frequency, it's not going to have any kind of distance that that it will transmit. It's hard to get, like the old shortwave radios, for instance. They were hard to get out very far. But, if you're within a few feet, I think it's feasible. It's something that I've decided to start looking into to see, putting my mad scientist hat on and see what I can come up with.
Well, is there not a way that you could boost it, though? I mean, once you got the right frequency?
Well, my biggest concern is, since it is on the same frequency as our brainwaves, I'd be scared if I made the signal too strong that it might cause some side effects.
Yeah.
Well, you also have the possibility that not everybody is on the same frequency. Not all brainwaves are on the same frequency. That's why there are variations when you do EEGs and such also.
Right.
And, or in my opinion, I think that's true. So you could actually, if what you're contemplating, and I'll be so excited to beta test for you, works.
Oh, yeah. Me too.
Then, you're going to have an opportunity to fine-tune it so that you are having the possibility of dialing into specific individuals.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And you can also take that another level to where you're dialing into specific vibration frequency levels. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking for, Mother Teresa or something, you can go and say, oh, well, most of these people who are this do that. If you're looking for genius levels, you can go, oh, well, bada boom, is there a range that these minds fall within? Mm-hmm. And there's all kinds of possibilities with that option.
Right. I'm pretty sure I'll be, and I'm pretty sure I'll be making a few phone calls to get a few ideas for this. It should be interesting when I call up a neurosurgeon.
I know someone here with the research facility in Birmingham that you can contact relevant to that. So we've got a ground start.
Hey,
Awesome.
Could you also have a dial on that thing to where you could change the frequencies? If the frequencies differ, you could kind of like when you're tuning a shortwave, and you're tuning in a frequency or something, or a station or something.
Right. Yeah, I would definitely recommend an adjustable tuner on it.
Yeah, but you'd have to so that you can vary your frequencies.
Well, yeah. I mean, if they differ, you want to be able to, to search through different frequencies to see what you catch.
Right.
I mean, can you imagine going back to, like, your grandma's house or, an area where something that mattered very much to you occurred and scanning through and finding that there's someone there
Right. Absolutely. That,
Yeah, I want You need to hurry up with that because I want that beta. Tomorrow, Frank. Hop on that.
You could kind of design something like a shortwave or like a you know what I'm talking about. Like a CB base station type deal, where you could set it up in an area where you know claims of activity are, you know, and you could like just go through your frequencies, your tuner and everything, and see if anything comes through.
Right. And so anyone listening, any of my friends that are into electronics and communications and things like that, deeper than I am, be expecting a phone call from me.
Well, you're the one that's usually getting those calls, so I think you'll be all right, and I think they'll all be excited to work on that.
I used to talk on CB a lot back several years ago, and I had, you know, the Cobra base station thing, and that's what made me think, why couldn't you take something like that's already created and change it to where it would pick up the lower frequencies?
Right. So Roger, you'll be the first one that gets an EVP coming through that says breaker 19.
Well, you know, we have ham radio operators affiliated with our network.
But it's an idea that
There you go.
So, it's an idea to toy around with. But it's like I say, it's something I actually just thought of last night. So,
how late were you up, Frank?
Till about 3.
Why did we know that? The idea got there and would not leave.
You could have that thing, like I said, it's already created if you could just change the frequencies. And then you would already have a microphone, set up with it and everything. If you got, if something come through, you'd be able to answer back.
Right, exactly. So yeah, then I think it would be definitely something to try out. But so anyway, it'll be on the list of my inventions that I'm working on, I guess.
What else you got?
Well, I'm still doing some tinkering around with the thermochromic pigments. And I'm working on trying to get the mixture that I want to give me the scaling that I want. But so far, I've been having some interesting results with that. Actually, I'll have to get you to come along when we do some more testing on them.
Hey, Frank, I just had an idea.
What's that?
If you could set up something like in a room, if you had activity in a room and you could set this thing up like that, could you not set up speakers around this room like a surround sound that would put out that frequency?
Well, it actually wouldn't be a like an audible frequency. The frequency it would work on is below human hearing. It would be broadcasting it in an electromagnetic sense.
Right, but I'm saying, couldn't you set something up like a surround sound type of situation, and like put that frequency out like all around the room? And that way, you were saying you'd have to be within so many feet. That way you would pretty much have the whole room covered and anything in that area.
It'd definitely be something to test out and see. Of course, it's, right now just halfway on paper, and, there's a lot that I don't know about it yet. But because like I say, I just thought of this last night. But yeah, I'm sure here over the next couple of weeks I'll be able to answer some specifics on it. Sure.
Hello.
Okay, hey Roger, it's Mars.
Hey, how's it going?
I just wanted to comment about him making that device.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the problem with using like a CB radio or something like that is you got to remember a CB radio is AM. In other words, it's a standing wave, all right? AM, amplitude modulation. In other words, your voice is carried on a standing wave. It puts out a carrier wave, and then the information is put on that wave and transmitted, okay? So I don't think he's talking about that type. He's talking about if he's trying to catch spirits, I don't think they're going to be transmitting a carrier wave and then communicating.
Right. Well, that's true. Right. But now they do use AM and FM bands on the Ghost Box too.
That's true.
Well, FM, okay, FM is frequency modulated, all right? So, and the only reason why I say that is because me and CJ have been into radios a very long time. If you go to the information page on, this website, you'll see that me and her both broadcasted for quite a while. But anyways, okay, there would be, probably that's where you most likely would want to go, is either like UHF or FM or something like that. But you definitely would stay away from an AM type device.
Okay, that makes sense.
All right, I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in there because you guys hit home with that one.
Okay, I appreciate it.
I appreciate any advice that you can give me, that because like I say, it's not even completely on the drawing board yet. So yeah, I'll take any input that I can get that's going to help me out with it. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, like Roger was saying, if you were going to start with any sort of a radio, start with one of those new personal, the things with, I forgot, REMs or something like that. They have like 21 channels on them, and that way you already have a transmitter, all right, and it's transmitting in an FM signal. So all you would have to do is probably find the chip and then try to find a chip to get to the frequency that you're most interested in.
Well, yeah, and you have to be able to swap between frequencies too.
Well,
yeah, that radio, that's already available to do that through the 21 channels that are available on it.
Right.
All you have to do is tune each channel to of that low of a frequency.
Right. Okay, I just wanted to put my 2 cents in, guys. All right, on with the show. Thanks.
Thanks for the advice.
Yes, I appreciate that. I'm making notes over here.
Good boy. Good boy.
So yep, that is definitely. But that's the wonderful thing about paranormal research. You can learn something from anybody, and even people who aren't paranormal investigators themselves or whatever, you can talk to a complete skeptic and learn some awesome information. You can turn to.
I mean, they may be familiar like Mars is with the topic that you're talking about.
Right. Well, it's like a conversation I was having just yesterday. This month marks 15 years that I've been in the field, and I don't care if you're not in the field at all, or if you just came in 2 months ago, a week ago. If you've got an idea or something, I'm going to listen.
Well, I mean, a person could come into the field today or tomorrow that has knowledge about things, that they've carried around for years, and applied it to the field of what they're coming into, and other people may not ever heard of.
Right. Absolutely.
I don't take nothing away from newbies, let me tell you, because there's a lot of people got more sense than I do.
You and me both. You and me both. So yeah,
Hey, that's a great idea, though, man. Like Kat said, I'd love to beta test that thing for you. You get one going.
Well, and I'm pretty sure I'll be giving Andre Woolard and Tim Woolworth a call sometime this week, and comparing notes with them and seeing if they can help me out with it too. So, because anything like that, those are two people I'm going to talk to. Then, because you can talk to those two. So some people can follow along, but when they get out there and really get technical, I feel like I'm the kid in the corner eating glue.
Windows 7, what? No, just no more updates. Oh yeah, Windows 7 is stopping their updates and all that stuff.
Yeah, and actually I have to apologize to everyone for the sound tonight and for me not being as active in the chat. I actually finished, they call it an upgrade, but mine was set to automatic updates, and it did it, finished up about 15 minutes before the show. And I still don't have audio drivers on my computer yet, so I'm actually talking over my phone.
I'm with Mars. I like my Windows 7.
Yeah, that's definitely so far my favorite operating system.
10, Dita says 10 is not too bad. If you go through there and figure out how to block them from getting all your information and stuff, then yeah.
Yep. So I'm sure I'll be doing a few tweaks tonight, needless to say. But yeah. So Kat, what have you had going on lately, huh? You over there being quiet.
Kat's having a reboot. She was having.
I'm back.
Oh, okay. Okay, I was looking for you in the chat room. Still didn't see you.
Well, I haven't gotten that far yet. But I'm working on it. I just brought home my trying to do a little bit more work at home, and thought, well, you know what? I am just going to do this. So we actually are getting ready to do a few events with my team, Scare of Alabama, and we're going to be doing some haunted tours and investigations and just seeing what's functioning for us. So I'm excited about the other location.
Yeah, Kat, you're breaking up pretty bad.
Well, I'm not sure why, because I'm wired in that.
Right.
Alrighty. You know what? I think that is when I'm trying to go into my chat room.
Do you sound like you swallowed a bumblebee?
Is this bad?
Still breaking up.
All right.
So, it's it's my fault. I got so distracted with the.
Hello again. Is this better?
That's better.
Woohoo!
I was just telling them it's my fault. I got so distracted with the Windows upgrade that I forgot to do my Skype voodoo chants.
Did you?
I did. I forgot to sacrifice the frozen chicken to the Skype gods
Oh,
tonight.
right. How could you do that?
Complete absent-mindedness is what it was. So,
Well,
so
how
I
is
take
that going?
responsibility. So I think that it seems to I think the dance works. I do, because it seems like if I forget it, then we have those nights that everything is all crazy and so yeah, I take responsibility.
I sacrificed a couple of cheeseburgers earlier.
Oh, that's a sacred cow, man. That probably, I don't know.
Well, I could have. I had pork steaks, but I thought I'll take it easy on them tonight. The pork thing. But anyway, so I made cheeseburgers and seasoned French fries. So.
Good stuff.
Yeah. That's CJ's favorite meal, cheeseburgers.
I actually had a Johnny Rockets cheeseburger for lunch today.
A who?
A Johnny Rockets.
Okay.
Yeah, that's somewhere I haven't been in forever.
I hadn't either, and David just got a taste for one. And so off we wandered on our adventures today. But it was astounding, as always. But, we were talking about the different things that we're doing, and we are getting into that time of year where we all will probably be doing a little more investigating because people become more aware and more excited and just want to go out and, get the food on.
Right.
And I know that Frank and I have Sloss Furnaces here as our local haunt, and they're getting ready to ramp up their, fright furnace.
Oh, yes.
If I ever make it down there, Frank, you and I and Kat have to go to Sloss. That's a.
Oh, yeah, that's a given.
Absolutely, that's a given. But the best part about it is that with all those people going through Sloss and all the energy, and they're all excited, there's people in character dress of, scary things, and the energy just ramps up and gets stronger and stronger. And you actually get experiences there during Fright Fest, because I had my first experience at Sloss when I had gone with my children, and I was in an area that was already closed off. It wasn't part of the tour.
Right.
And I think that I am excited to go and I tried to talk our team into going there during Fright Fest or the Fright Nights to go to the through the tunnels and things like that. And they were like, "Oh, will there be so many people?" I said, "I know." I think it would be awesome. That's what I'm saying.
Well, the thing about it is, it's like when I was at Waverly, we had like 2 huge groups in there.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is with that is if you're trying to run EVP and you're in a room and all those rooms, the doors are open. It's like,
Exactly.
you can hear everything. And you're trying to do EVP, and then you got 2 or 3 people walking down through the hallway blabbing, yakking. Some of them's whispering, and of course, you know how whispers are when you pick them up on a recorder.
They are scary ghost of EVPs, indeed. We've all heard that. But, sloths is always like that because, when you're downstairs, you've got echoes and machinery that people can bump into. I've been there when it was 150 person event. And on top of that, you have cars going across on the viaduct. You've got all kinds of stuff. When you're in the tunnels, you have the water dripping into the puddles and stuff. Sloss has a lot of ambient noise.
Yes, it does.
But it's still one of the best places because even with the noise, you can filter out, especially if you're familiar with it, what isn't normal. And, anytime that you're with a massive investigation, you're going to have that background noise anyway. But when you're down in the tunnels, I don't think even the fright nights could reach down into the tunnels very well.
I gotta throw this in there. Frank got his kicks on Route 66.
Were you on Route 66 this week?
I was.
I was on the Arizona end back in May and June. What did you think?
It was really interesting. That was one of the few times that I've been headed that direction and actually got to slow down and tour a little bit. Usually when I was going that way, I was always, leaving skid marks along I-40 heading so fast that, I didn't have any time to do much other than stop for fuel. And so it was nice taking it at a slower pace. But yeah, I did. I went out, while I was there, one of the interesting spots that I hit up was Guthrie, Oklahoma, which is anyone familiar with, Elmer McCurdy?
Yes.
And the story of him, for anyone listening, Elmer McCurdy he was a, just not quite Jesse James. We'll just put it that way. But he tried to be an outlaw, and he ended up robbing a train, and I think he got away with 2 gallons of whiskey and $46.
Well, it didn't work out well for him either.
Right. So he ends up, posse's coming out, and he gets shot, killed. Well, the Undertaker, goes ahead and bombs him, fixes him up and everything. Well, no one ever came to claim the body. So he's propped up outside the Undertaker shop on display because the Undertaker had tried a few new things and was so proud of his work.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So, yeah. And he
ended
up
forgotten about propping him up.
Mm-hmm. So, and eventually, the Undertaker set him up in the back of. There were so many people coming out. Eventually, the Undertaker put him in the back of the parlor, and was charging people, a few cents to come through and look at him. And it went on. Well, later on, the Undertaker dies, and history kind of takes its route the way that it went, and Elmer McCurdy's body ends up traveling with the circus.
Yeah. But what is that saying? A funhouse dummy that turned out to be a real life mummy?
Right. Yeah. He traveled with the circus for quite a while. Yeah. Then later on ends up being in a funhouse, and I want to say it was in San Diego, but it was somewhere there in California in that general area. But he ends up in a fun house, and one of the employees accidentally bumps into him, breaks his arm. Arm falls off, and he ends up checking and looking, and he sees there's real bone, and that this isn't just a prop, this is a real person. So, the police get involved, they trace it back, and then eventually they find out who this person was and everything. And
it was like 60 years. 60 years that this person wasn't.
Right.
I mean, it just boggles the mind.
So,
I mean, it sounds weird.
He actually he was shot in 1911.
He's a would-be outlaw that became famous and traveled all over.
Right. He did more in death than he ever did in life.
Yeah.
I mean, his claim to fame was $64 or $46 and 2 jugs of whiskey.
Yeah.
But he, traveled all out there. Well, from 1911, when he died, it wasn't until I think 1977 when he was actually
December 7th of 76. I just Googled the date because I was curious if I was right on the 60 years, but yeah, December 7th.
Yep, so while I was in Guthrie, I got to go see his grave. And,
was it active, or has he finally tried to get a little much-needed rest? I mean, what was that like?
We didn't pick up very much out there. I don't think there's anything going on around his grave. The cemetery he's buried in had an interesting feel to it.
Oh, come on. You don't go by feelings.
well, I'll put it this way. It was a really windy night, so it was blowing up dust, and, we're getting wind noise on the recorders and things like that. So there were a few interesting things that we seen and heard on the recorder. However, the skeptic in me says, "Oh, well, that's because of the wind. It was blowing up dust particles."
There you go. You're back.
Wind, and right. So I think that's the best way to describe it. But it's kind of interesting. When they finally did put him back in the ground, they poured a huge slab of concrete over his vault and then finished burying him.
A little paranoid, were they?
Right. I guess they didn't want him to do any more traveling.
Well, Frank being the scientific guy that he is, the mad scientist and all that, he was wanting to examine the bones. Come on now, Frank.
Right. Well, I'm wondering what type of, formaldehyde does okay, but it's only good for, an ideal situation for, a couple of years. So I'm just wondering what kind of methods they use for his mummy to last so long.
Well, when they embalm the people with formaldehyde, of course, once they're buried, they decompose.
Right.
Yeah, because they're in moisture.
Something to make him last that long, besides formaldehyde.
He was in a desert. He dried out. They said he was mummified. If you look at the photos, he looks like a mummy.
Well, if they left him standing out in front of the parlor there for however long, with the wind and dust blowing on him, it's bound to harden his tissue somewhat.
Yeah,
right,
because that's pretty arid there.
And you've got an excellent point there, Cap, because then, in the absence of moisture, and if he's been properly embalmed, of course, the internal organs have been taken out and the fluids, and so you don't have the gastric processes that are, putting off the extra gases and tissue breakdown and all of that internally. So once everything was good and dry and that heat and everything, it definitely makes a lot of sense.
Okay, hang on a minute, y'all. We're a little bit late, but we're live on WCJV Digital Broadcasting out of Youngstown, New York. You're listening to Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio with your host, Roger Belt, and my guests, Frank Lee and Cat Hobson, and we're talking about mummies. Carry on, y'all.
Well, just one poor, sad soul mummy. That's, well, I guess a bunch of mummies, because that's... There's several people that were mummified.
Well,
and generally in that region, too.
You know that they found bodies buried in the desert, and they were buried in the sand, and they were mummified from being buried in the sand. Was it the heat from the sand, or just because of the dryness or whatever? But they didn't decompose.
Well, I know that the heat gets the sand in Gulf Shores horribly hot. Like, you cannot, unless you're a lifeguard that does it all year, you can't walk on it because your feet are too tender.
Exactly.
But if you're in a coastal region, or if you're anywhere that would have a significant water table, the moisture is not that deep. So if you were in a very arid region of the world, like a desert area, then I think that would be a possibility. But it would have to be a pretty significant desert area, I think.
Well, I can't remember where I saw that, but I think it was like in Arabia or somewhere over there where they had a lot of desert.
And not a lot of water.
Right.
So limited water tables. That would be logical.
Mm-hmm. Right, because that would be the key to it is,
I watched a video on it where they, had unearthed some of these bodies that I guess had gotten buried in the desert, and they were mummified,
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I mean, the same is true. Like, that's like the mummies at Pompeii. When Mount Vesuvius erupted,
right.
And covered them with ash so quick that the moisture would be evaporated from the body.
Right.
And they were frozen in the positions they were in, which was, some of them was pretty weird.
Well, I'm sure some of them were trying their best to escape, so they were in a fleeing position. You had people asleep, people eating.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I can't even fathom what that must have been like.
Yeah, but could you imagine digging up a place and everything and finding bodies like sitting with a bowl in their hand or something, eating and everything, and froze like that?
Yeah.
Right.
That's what makes you think it must have been the gases as opposed to the heat. Right. When Montserrat went, the problem was the gases, or the real threat was the gas from the volcanoes. And, people don't realize that the ash is more dangerous than the lava.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Volcanic ash is extraordinarily toxic.
Now, I have to apologize for the dirty thought that ran through my mind, but...
Oh, well, you did have a cheeseburger.
Well, and I gotta say this, I just gotta say this.
I'm a little scared, Roger.
If they were in the act of...
There were some.
Know where I'm going here?
There were some.
And they were froze like that, just think they, for the eternity, they will be in the act of.
Well, since we're talking about body parts and grossness, and now we're on to sexual innuendo, if you gotta go.
What better way?
So,
right.
And now I'm done with that subject.
Okay, good deal. I'm sorry.
I'm the only chick here, okay? Anyway, boy, is my face pink. But they're actually, people were caught in just everyday routine living. And there were people who, I guess, felt what was happening. They were found in an embrace.
Well, Dina said she thought I was talking about taking a dump. I guess some of them were caught like that, too.
Well, just living. Not anticipating that was your last moment. Although I think that would be probably the best way to go, is to not know what was happening.
Absolutely.
Bill says he's a cowboy and he wants to die in a saddle, make the mortician earn his pay, taking the smile off his face.
No, in that situation, don't make him earn his pay taking the smile off your face. Make him earn his pay burying the horse with you.
Yeah, he's got to mummify you and the horse, so he's got to, man, what a grave they got to dig.
So.
Thank you.
So, I mean, if a guy can be buried on his Harley.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
People are buried in cars. What are you talking about? Do you know how big those are?
Didn't they say that one of those serial killers buried a cop on his motorcycle?
Wouldn't surprise me.
So, well, I can't remember where it is, but I was reading just a few weeks ago about someone. There's a guy, he's buried, or he's entombed. I don't think they actually buried him. I think he's above ground entombed. But he was interred sitting on his Harley.
Now, I could see that, Well,
and Maple Hill Cemetery here in Huntsville, Alabama. That's the cemetery that is adjacent to what a lot of people in the paranormal know as Dead Children's Playground.
Yeah, great place to investigate.
Mm-hmm. I can't remember the lady's name. You might know it, Kit, better than me. But she's in a mausoleum, and they buried her, or they entombed her, sitting in a rocking chair. Because you remember knock on the side of the mausoleum that she'll knock back.
Well, I spend so much time on this computer at this desk, they'll have to bury me with my computer desk and monitor and microphone and everything, so that I can carry on in the afterlife.
Right. I can see it now. Instead of a normal EVP, it's going to be an EVP of Roger, giving an announcement that they're about to take a break on the show.
We'll be back in 5 minutes. Y'all don't go away.
That's funny.
You are listening to All the Way Dead here on...
Well, I'm just going to tell all of our people in chat that I have tried several more times to get in there, and it is just being difficult for me tonight. So my apologies, but thank you all for being there. I could see you for a moment. But, well, what are you going to be doing for the Halloween season? Either one of you or both of you.
I haven't gotten that far yet, but I would love to be able to do, like some big old 2-story empty house and set it up for, to have people, to come along and just join in, and I think that'd be cool.
I love those houses. Sometimes it's hard to track the ownership, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the problem. I can find them, I just can't find who owns them.
And finding the ones that have the secure enough floor, people when they break into these things, which no real paranormal investigator would do.
Right.
Especially when they go in at night, I am amazed that there are not constant reports of adolescents and, young investigators crashing through the floor with broken arms and legs and having to go into hospitalization situations from that, because most of those places can be pretty rickety.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and aside from that, the black mold and the different bacteria that you could possibly encounter. And
well, see, that's the reason why you find the owner, you get permission. That way you can go in the daytime and see where the dangerous areas are.
Absolutely.
So you know what to avoid when you go back to do your nighttime investigation.
Yep.
Right. Well, and not to mention also, I mean, we're all from the South. We know how critters are.
Oh yeah.
Some with legs, some without. Some with
especially
four,
without.
some with eight. I would be interested to find out how many of your doctor visits from people with insect bites and infections, things like that, come from the people who think it's a good idea to break into the house that's set empty for 10, 15, 20 years and found that it was
not
occupied.
empty. But it is not truly empty of more than spiritual things.
Bill said something silly to think of. Bodies of people exposed to desert conditions will actually begin to mummify. Is it unrealistic to think that the natural process of mummification inspired the mummification process of the religious infatuation, like the pharaohs and whatnot?
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a good question, because most of what they used for mummification it was a blend of herbs and spices and something similar to the Colonel's recipe, I guess. Not really sure, but they didn't have a lab to make formaldehyde. They didn't have all of these type things, so everything they got had to come from at least semi-regional areas. And it makes you wonder if that's not where they got the idea, because
maybe they discovered some of those mummies in the desert and said, hey,
Does anybody know if the pharaohs had the residual? I mean, because I'm assuming they've done x-rays and ultrasounds and everything else to them, and I should know this. I haven't researched it though. Did they have internal organs still in there?
No, they removed all the organs, and some of the organs were actually put into clay jars.
Well, then that would suggest trial and error to know to do that.
Well, they removed their brain, they removed their organs, and they placed them in clay jars, and they put them in the crypt with them so that they would have them whenever they reached the afterlife, wherever they were supposed to be going, because they would need those things in the afterlife or whatever. But
knowing to do that means that there were times that they may not have known to do that,
exactly.
There was trial and error to learn to do it.
Well, and
that's pretty funky.
Wouldn't take place as long as the organs were present.
Right.
Right, and not only that, but it's believed that a lot of the spices that they used, some of them were like incense, like frankincense and different things like that were used. They believe that it wasn't so much to help the preservation as it was to cover the smell of the body during the process. Because they also were known to put different things inside the body cavities.
Natural mummification, or a lack of disintegrating, or I couldn't think of the word right off the top of my head. Decomposing.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
That's where they got the idea of vampires from.
Mm-hmm.
They would bury a person, and for whatever reason, they dug them back up so much time afterward, and they had not decomposed at all.
Right.
So they assumed that they were the living dead.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting thought, huh?
Right.
That is, but I just Googled Egyptian mummification process.
Mm-hmm.
And they did not incise the skull. They actually pulled the brain out of the nose using a hook.
They had a tool that they would stick up their nose and pull their brain out.
But they put the heart back inside the body. And then they rinsed inside of the body with wine and spices, and they covered the corpse with salt for 70 days. Mm-hmm. And then they would stuff the body with linen or sand so it would maintain its shape. And then at the end of the 70 days, they would wrap it. So that's just pretty knowledgeable.
Well, I'm just wondering if I spoiled anyone's dinner who might have been eating KFC tonight with my herbs and spices remark.
I think that ship sailed a little while ago.
Right.
So I think we're good.
Just
we were talking about poor old Elmer. But it's just fascinating because this kind of thing leads one back to ancient alien theories and stuff like that. I mean, it's just so fascinating to me that these people, eons ago, not only did they build pyramids out the wazoo all over the world, but they knew you could pull the brain out of the nose using a hook. I didn't know that, and I live in 2015.
Right.
So, it's just bizarre.
You never watched The Mummy?
I don't watch horror movies, which is another little thing. I was actually on a Paranormal Facebook page the other day and it said, tell us something that nobody would know about you. And I was like, I don't watch horror movies. I don't watch scary movies. I don't, put negative energy into my mind that I don't have to.
You would probably like The Mummy. It's it's not really a horror movie. It's like an adventure.
Is it gruesome?
No, not really.
Okay, that would be okay.
It's not gruesome. It has, if you've never watched it, it'll have a couple of spots that might make you jump, but it's not like gonna scare you half to death.
Oh, well, I don't mind jumping. I don't like things that are negative energy, paranormal type things. I don't like things that are negative, slash and gash kind of things.
It's kind of like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, minus Indiana Jones.
Does the Mummy step in?
Well, yeah, you'll see the Mummy, and it's can't really say too much without ruining it for you.
But it's an adventure movie. It's not a horror movie, right?
Right. It's pretty cool.
I think they had actually based it like as a horror movie, but it's not really a horror movie to me.
Right.
Because it does have now it does have a part where the undead soldiers or whatever in the tomb are brought back to life, and they have the sword fight going on with them. But I mean, it's not like a slash gash type deal. Yeah.
Well, people are always amazed. I've never seen The Exorcist. I've never seen Annabelle. Sorry, Annie. I've never seen The Conjuring, although my team went as a team without me. I was like, I'm the only big baby in this group, and I'm the oldest person here just about. But, there's all kinds of things that I really think that to do the kind of things that I do and that I'm evolving into doing more of, that I don't need to have, even in the back of my mind, just that little bit of, well, this happened in that flick. I wonder if that was based on reality. And then I panic. I can't panic. I like having positive energy around me when I go to do a cleansing or an investigation or just to help someone.
Right. And, I think some people get a little overly obsessed with the horror movies and things like that. Way I gauge it is if I go to your house and it looks more like a horror set than a living room.
You're going to get to keep that house.
Okay, you guys, hard break time. Everybody go get your coffee, tea, wine, whiskey, whatever you're drinking. We are on WCJV Digital Broadcasting out of Youngstown, New York. This is Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio with your host, Roger Belt, and my guests, Frank Lee and Cat Hobson. We'll be back in about 5. Don't go away.
You are listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York, the CJ Mars Radio Network.
We are back, and we are talking about all kinds of things strange and weird. Dita in the chat room was talking about something found near Stonehenge, 90 enormous stone monoliths measuring up to 15 feet lying in an area forming what researchers have called a superhenge near the Neolithic site in Wiltshire, England. Archaeologists believe they may have been used for religious rites or whatever. Where exactly from Stonehenge is that? How far? And how come they're just now talking about finding this place? You'd think they've been all around that whole area.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, that was actually about 2 miles from the Stonehenge site. And I'm not sure what led to the discovery, but I know that what they've uncovered so far was because they were using ground penetrating radar, and that's how they detected.
Oh yeah, they dug that up. I remember now. Yeah, it was buried.
Right. Well, you know that they knew that was there. There's no way that you can tell me that that's not.
Yeah, they didn't just now discover that, because I watched a video on that probably a year ago or more.
Right. Well, I mean, the same thing
not
applies.
Even that recent.
Well, it's similar. Like, look at Richard III with his grave. He was the king at the time that the Tudors were invading England, and of course he got defeated. And for years and years, no one knew where he was buried, but they always suspected it. But it just took, such a political process to get the clearances to do it. Come to find out, he was buried in a parking lot, or underneath a parking lot.
Wow. She's saying this is not the same one we're thinking of, that this one was found accidentally or something.
Yeah, it is the enormous. I just found it. It is 90 stones. It's not just a stone. It's actually a monument. And the stones would have been taller than double-decker buses. But it's 3 kilometers away from Stonehenge, and they're calling it Durrington Walls Superhenge. It may have as many as 90 large standing stones associated with it. The use of non-invasive geophysical technologies have begun to reveal its secrets, but that doesn't say that's how it was found. But there's a project called Stonehenge Hidden Landscapes, and this is actually, what I'm reading is in Irish Times. It's just amazing. It has a 1,500 meter diameter and 1.5 kilometer circumference. And it's surrounded by a ditch also. So, so basically it's surrounded by a moat.
Right.
So, and there's stuff beneath it.
There's stuff beneath the stones that are there?
Yeah. The Durrington Walls is the largest henge project monument that has ever been discovered. I think what Dita is talking about is what they recently discovered, which is the row of 90 stones that are taller than a bus under this. So there's layers of this. Many survived because they were pushed over before being buried, and others have disappeared, but they were found with radar and other equipment showing the pits where they once stood. And it's a C shape, it's not a circle that they know of so far. But it's the same stones used to build Stonehenge.
Wow.
So,
which they don't know how they got there. The sandstones. Nobody knew how they got to Stonehenge.
Well, think of this. Think of how many years that the people who discovered Easter Island thought that the Papoa were just the heads until they actually dug down and seen how far the bodies actually went. They still had 20 feet of excavation to do before they got to the base of the statues.
Yeah. I mean, and does that not just give you pause? I mean, we've put men on the moon. We have things on Mars. We have something that is out, passing Pluto. And we didn't know that there was something underground on our own planet.
And I can't help but have the sentiment that we need to know everything there is to know about our planet before we start trying to really go into too much depth with landing on others.
Well, I mean, it's great and it's exciting, but how do you miss this? Where were people focused?
Exactly.
It is so inconceivable.
Well, when you think of how many people have been to Stonehenge, over the years.
Specifically researching it.
Yeah, and they didn't discover this stuff until now.
Or they didn't release that information until now.
Well, true.
And why would they?
Well, why not? I mean, what's the big to do? It's just another site to investigate, Why would it be hush hush? Unless they found something in there that good old Uncle Sam thought we needed to keep secret.
This isn't ours.
Right. And
the British are much more open.
Something that really comes to mind is, if you look at a lot of the structures that have been found, Stonehenge itself, a circular pattern of stone, of these giant stones making this huge megalith. Look at Egypt, look at the construction of the pyramids. It wasn't done. They didn't make mortar and bricks when they very well could have. They did it all out of stone. The giant stone obelisk. There's so much of it that all of these ancient sites have that in common. There wasn't any. Now, their houses and structures a lot of times were built out of mortar and clay, brick, mud.
Thatch.
But what's so special about stone?
And why is it all over the globe?
It really makes me think about the stone tape theory, and to me it makes me think that possibly they knew something about the properties of stone that we didn't.
Well, you mentioned the obelisks, and I think that you and I were talking about those obelisks of Tibet, and so few people were even aware that they existed. And until I started researching obelisks, I didn't. I mean, I knew that they were in various locations, but these are hidden in the Himalayas, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And they're beautiful.
And think about the placement, too.
Yeah, and they're uniform.
Mm-hmm.
They're uniform with the ones in other parts of the world.
All over the world, they're finding ancient cities and whatnot, you know. And now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you can't go out in the jungles and discover more Mayan cities that are still buried, you know, whatever.
Oh, definitely will, because
You know,
Yes.
I have a good friend that goes down there and does research regularly. Spends at least 3 months of every year around, around the Nazca Plateau and we have uncovered very, very little of the actual pyramids they believe are still out there. They still believe that there's still hundreds of Mayan pyramids, villages, and everything else.
well, I mean, I'm saying there's so much vast jungle out there, you know, that has overtaken a lot of that stuff that they could still find even greater Mayan cities than they already know of, you know, that are just buried. And that I can understand, but something like that's that close to Stonehenge with all the equipment that they have and they investigate all that stuff, you would think they would already have found that.
And it's not in an unpopulated region of the world either. That is someplace that has major research dollars, equipment, and personnel.
Right. And here's something to think about, too, is all of your major megalithic sites are always on points where energy lines intersect.
Ley lines everywhere.
Bill just mentioned ley lines. He said, I'm amazed at the lack of research and effort to uncover more knowledge on the lines and the power points.
Don't be fooled by that. That's not the case. There's a lot of research and a lot of knowledge about those.
Frank is the ley line man, Bill. He can tell you about the ley lines.
Well, here's the thing. All of the megalithic sites are always put in where the energy lines have an intersection. And not only that, but even recently, the Georgia Guidestones, for instance, if you're familiar with those, the spot where they were put up is also an intersection of ley lines.
Yep.
They have a spot like that in Texas, too, I believe, where ley lines cross and there's like a big double tree that sits there. And you can stand like in between those trees and you can feel the energy emanating from the ground or whatever.
Right, absolutely. It's kind of funny. I was talking with a friend of mine earlier. I mean, just a few minutes before the show. It's kind of funny. We're talking about the energy lines and the ancient civilizations and all of this. But let me just throw something out here for everyone to think about. Every creature on this earth has its own natural defense mechanisms, its own natural sheltering mechanisms. There are so many things that they have. If you look at some animals, how their anatomy naturally equips them to dig. They have defense mechanisms, stingers, claws, different things like that, built in, fur to insulate them. There's so many things if you consider. But then look at humans. We don't have fur. We don't have any body parts that are specifically there for defense. It's almost like we don't belong here somehow.
Yeah. Or we didn't evolve to be self-protective.
Mm-hmm. It really makes you wonder And even if you look at evolution, which I'm highly skeptical of evolution. Now, I do believe that a lot of species have evolved over the years to a certain degree, but I don't think that, they haven't been able to find the missing link because I don't think the missing link exists. There are no, like your Neanderthals, your trilobites, a lot of those, they're close, but they're more on they have a humanoid body shape, but they're still more in the primate class, closer to that than they actually are to us.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that there is a missing link, because in all of these millions of years, too, why did some evolve and others didn't? Like, for instance, everything has evolved so much. Why do we still have such simple life forms as amoeba?
Yeah.
But it does. It seems like the most natural creature, or the most unnatural creature on this planet, are humans.
Well, we don't quite fit in, do we? And we certainly don't have the global mindset.
They're so intelligent and have so much knowledge, we know pretty damn little.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's really, as a rule, as a species, we're very self-centered.
Mm-hmm.
We think that everything here, as a rule, is ours for the taking. And, we have people who are coming to the fore that are looking for sustainability because we've done such a poor job of guarding our environment for different reasons. It's just like we need another Tesla to come through.
Yes, we do.
We need someone who is getting guidance and who has a higher mindset and who wants to not take all of the resources on the planet and all of the cash on the planet for themselves, and be able to, granted, I think if another Tesla showed up, he would be treated worse than Nikolai was. But
right.
I do think that without someone like that who would be a redeemer and almost, for our planet, a savior.
Right.
And I'm not being disrespectful of Christianity. I am a Christian. But our planet, we've taken such poor care of it that we're even being lied to about, the nuclear waste in the Pacific Ocean. I won't touch anything out of the Pacific right now.
Right.
It's still flowing. Nobody can stop it. But you don't hear any reports on that anymore. There's nothing that can be done to stop the flow of nuclear waste into the Pacific Ocean. And, nobody's telling the public about that anymore. It's only like 2 years old. And nobody discusses it. The oil spill in the Gulf, the stuff that they used to drop the oil to the bottom is still there with the oil. There's things everywhere globally that have happened that are irreparable, but nobody really talks about that because they're on to the next crisis. There's always a diversionary process. We're on to the next.
Because they don't want you to know about that.
Well, they don't want you to think about that because you have to be distracted by the next shiny object.
That's just like the whole thing with the riots and all that crap, and then the taking down of the flag and the this and
They're
that.
diversions.
Whenever one starts drying up, they come up with another one because
they're always a
see
diversion.
what's going on behind the scenes.
Yes.
Right. Exactly. And just in case we haven't already put enough stuff out there tonight that's going to keep everyone awake all night thinking
and have
about
the men
this.
in black knocking on our doors. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, they've been hauling mummies around with them.
Right. So let's put something else out there. Because they're already going to be pondering the connection and to all of the ancient megalithic sites, the possibility of the stone tape theory that, maybe the ancient people really knew that these were conductors of natural energy, and it's just now taking us, a bunch of paranormal researchers, to be the ones to jump up and down and say, hey, this stone can do this. It has these properties.
Yeah.
But, if that, the natural mummification, the vampires, and everything else doesn't keep you awake tonight thinking about it, how about this? Is anyone familiar with the Mandela effect?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. We had a discussion going last night about the Mandela effect, and which this, I guess, the shortest way to, everyone can Google Mandela effect, and they'll give you the long version of it with like the detailed, accurate description, I guess. But basically, the Mandela effect is, maybe something from your childhood. You always remember it being a certain way. I mean, you're absolutely certain, no doubt, you'd bet money it was this way. But then, even though you remember that, it's like you're the only person who remembers it. And everybody else remembers something different. Mm-hmm. For instance, it may be the way something as simple as the way a brand logo looked or was spelled.
Right.
You remember it being one way, but all of a sudden it's something different. It's like something has changed, but you didn't change with it. And it's like you're either the only or one of very few people who realizes the change.
Right.
Well, of course, and then that opens up the door to, is it psychological? Or are we talking quantum mechanics? Did somehow you make a paradigm shift into an alternate dimension? Where that is.
You've seen this before. You've seen the old one. You've seen the future one, but it's not what it's supposed to be.
Right. Where it makes you wonder, did something shift? Maybe where you were, that's the way it always was, always will be, but you're the only one that knows that. To everyone else, it's always been different. And, the Mandela effect makes you, it really calls into question. You're talking about the way things are in the world right now, the riots, the changes in mindsets. Just as a paranormal investigator, just over the past 5 years, I've seen such a tremendous increase in the caseloads and different claims. We've seen globally such a shift in people's opinions and so many different things. It's like it all came at once. Where did it go? When did it change? It's like it happened overnight. A lot of people talk about 2009 being a major change. A lot of people talk about 2011, 2012. But there's so many people who talk about remembering different points where it's like all of a sudden they know something that it seems like nobody else is catching.
And nobody else is paying attention to.
Right. So what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are that there's absolutely been a shift, and I think the reality shift is trying to be downplayed. I think that there's a serious reason that so many distractions are happening. I mean, yeah, you and I have talked about this before, and I think, Roger, you and I have too. I don't think that they're coincidences. I think that things flow. And I do think, I'm not a conspiracy theorist per se. I just cannot fathom, and I know it makes me sound gullible and naive and whatever, I can't fathom that a government would do some of the things to its own country and its own people and, you know, just seeking power and control and trying to, you know, have people like a magician with the sleight of hand, you know, ooh, look what's over here in my right hand while this left hand is passing legislation or ignoring things or whatever. And then once it's passed, then, you know, the people who are screaming, look at this, are still considered insane. And everybody thinks, oh, it's well, not that big a deal. And I think that's happened 3 times in the last year.
Okay.
Yes.
We got to do a quick break here. We're live on WCJV Digital Broadcasting out of Youngstown, New York. You're listening to Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio with your host, Roger Belt, and my guests, Frank Lee and Kat Hobson. Kate. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
We know who
Just
didn't
don't
get
call me
coffee
late
during
for
the break.
dinner, right?
Hey, just real quick, something that I was puzzling while I was listening to Kat there. The knowledge that we have, and this kind of delves a little bit into the extraterrestrial thing, but I was thinking about how the planet is going to, you know, wearing a handbasket and all the stuff that's going on with overpopulation, and, you know, then they bring in like millions of immigrants to overpopulate the overpopulation. This isn't just happening in the U.S., it's happening in other countries too.
Yep.
Except for Russia, because they know better. But
Well, I mean, look at Hungary, at the migration over there.
yeah, but my point is, if we actually do have all this extraterrestrial technology that, you know, you hear all about, and they have found Earth-like planets out there, who is to say that we haven't already colonized one of these planets? The whole plan is to put the people they want there and pretty much get rid of the rest of us, so to speak, you know, and start over on this other planet. I know that sounds kind of out there, but the way our government is, I wouldn't put it past them.
Right.
Well, I think that, I think anything's possible. And I also, you know, one of my favorite lines out of and I don't remember the dollar amounts, but out of Independence Day is when they arrive at Area 51 and the president's like, how do I not know this? And they said plausible deniability.
Right.
And then he says, but how do you fund it? And, you know, the guy's dad in the back says, oh, come on. You don't really think it's $3 million for a hammer and $200,000 for a toilet seat, do you? You know,
Exactly.
and, you know, you do have to realize when you go, and I have gone through budgets because I'm just nosy that way and sometimes I get bored. But,
and budgets do exist.
yeah. And, you know, one of the things that a first-year teacher told me the other day is that, you know, I think it's tragic that I have these 4-year-olds and they have all their dreams and aspirations, and the one thing they can't dream of being is an astronaut because we don't have a space program.
Right.
And, you know, this is a generation that's going to grow up not looking to the heavens in America.
Well, people are, they're just not looking for our stuff in the heavens.
No, but I mean, these children, they're not going to be dreaming of going to space because it's not something that's an option for them.
Right.
Well, see, that's just the thing. I think that we do go to space. Just not publicly.
So what do you think? You think they're going to go and pull the best and the brightest and put them into programs to make them work to achieve those goals?
It's kind of like the way things are going now. You either go along with the plan or you're excommunicated.
That's a very strong and true statement.
So they would use people that would go along with what they wanted.
Right. Well, me personally, I'm, just going to throw my little 2 cents out there that I've seen the people on the island and don't mind being kicked off of it.
True that.
Exactly.
Well, by the very nature of what we do here, that's a strong possibility because we're truth speakers.
The powers that are controlling the puppet strings are the ones who are going to choose the people who are going to go to colonize this other planet.
That's not a future tense, I don't think. I think that, I think that people are groomed. I think that there's reasons that certain people are pulled into advanced academic programs.
Yes, thank you.
And I think that, but I think that's already a process that's in place. Yeah,
and they're the ones that they're going to send to this planet to colonize because they want people that they can control that have the brains to do what needs to be done.
Do you think that's why the people, and just tossing this out here because we're talking about the subject matter, but do you think that that's the reason that people in academia are so sheltered and protected and in no danger of losing their positions without serious criminal activity? Because they're actually training the minds of the young to accept certain things?
That's a very good possibility.
I wish I could see chat. I bet it's blowing up. But I just find it interesting. When I had one of our other co-hosts.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
What?
Bill said, are they creating a slave race off planet to care for the rich? And that's exactly what I'm talking about. The powers that be are going to choose those who will do their bidding and take care of them because that's where they're going to go when the crap hits the fan.
Interesting concept. I wouldn't have considered a slave race.
Well, too, you have to consider and this going back to the Mandela effect. As human nature, we are inquisitive, we are independent, and human nature leads us to, you can't go 20 years without hearing about some kind of major revolution. Whether it's in our country or somewhere else around the world, there's always a major revolt. That is human nature. Now, if you notice, Mandela effect kicking in here, over the past several years, have you not seen the change in most of society? Nope. Society isn't as independent as they used to be. Society isn't as quick to voice opposition. There's more of a common mindset, a go with the crowd mindset. And it's completely
I don't think that's it. Go ahead, but I don't think that's it. I'm going to lose my train of thought.
I don't know. That just seems to me, and this is just my opinion, but it seems like over the past few years, the general mindset has changed where instead of that, where independence once was a good trait, now you're ostracized if you think.
Yes. It's groupthink. It is groupthink that is being implemented. It's being implemented on a collegiate level. It's being implemented on an elementary level. It's being implemented in a adult public venue. It's everywhere. It starts with I think it starts with video games because that isolates children from their families. They are focused on getting the next kill or getting the next car or getting the next coin or whatever. And they do not have family interaction time with the adults in their lives who would be able to say, oh, well, back in my day, we kicked those Nazis' ass, or we did this, or we did, we actually stood against something that was evil and permeating the world, and we went and took care of that. The last of the great generation is dying. And so that's going to be rewritten. People in countries that have no interest in the preservation of America are laughing at us because we're considered so gullible, because we're being led astray by leaders who are supposed to look out for us and aren't. We have people who are they're going psycho. I think that there's a lot to be said for whatever, I don't know if it's video games that's causing the desensitization to violence.
Well, not only that, but have you ever looked closely at Common Core curriculum?
Yes, I have. I have a person very close to me that has been trained to teach it.
And, that's just another conditioning tool. Yeah,
it is conditioning.
It really is.
It is getting the way that students are educated away from the adults who know that it's crap. And that's why when people are so alarmed by it, it's like Roger said, they're ostracized.
Right. Well, I can't tell you how many times over the years, and granted, Alabama doesn't really have we're not a Common Core education system, but still some of the Common Core curriculum is leaked in.
It's here.
And, I can't tell you how many times over the years I've told my daughters, what you're learning in school is crap. This is the way that you do it. This is the way you find it. You research it independently, and led them through those steps and said, okay, now to pass your test,
you have to think this way. Yep. Absolutely. But Alabama is, in fact, they may not have accepted, air quotes, Common Core. Alabama is a Common Core state. They are teaching through that methodology. They are teaching that lack of intelligent process. And, I just have a real problem with that. And I think rightly so. Boy, did I step on a soapbox. I'm so sorry, everybody. This is not, but
it's a show about putting out information that's not commonly available and putting out the truth over what everyone wants to believe. So I don't think you'd call what you've been on a soapbox.
Well, I had one of our other hosts who has come to our network since she was on my show, Deborah Jane East, as a guest. And I was actually concerned for her, and I sometimes still am, because she is such a truth speaker.
Right.
And I worry because there's a lot of people that don't appreciate those truths being spoken, and there's been a lot of effort to subvert that information.
Right, absolutely. I've talked to Deborah quite a few times, and she is so full of information and so blatantly honest.
And fearless.
She doesn't withhold it. Yes, and that is a quality that I really respect about her.
Yep, me too.
She always has some of the most fascinating research that she does.
Yeah, and she does her own.
But yeah, like you were saying, though, you can't help but think, is she potentially making herself a target by not withholding some of this information.
I don't think there's any potential to it. I think she has put a great big target on her back.
Mm-hmm.
And I worry for that. But, that's her decision, and she is one of the bravest people I know. And I've always liked her. I've enjoyed all the information that she puts out there because she is so fearless and she provides accurate, factual information.
Yes.
But I do worry because she is so fearless.
What we talk about here, although the show is basically paranormal, but also, I like to put it paranormal and strange. We talk about all different kind of things.
Yeah.
But what we've been talking about basically fits into these categories because everything that has to do with futuristic things, information like Deborah Jane talks about, the UFOs and extraterrestrial stuff. I do too sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
It's all based in the same area, and all that information, in my perspective, is something that needs to get out.
I agree.
And we may bring it out just going from one subject to another. And that's why I like roundtables, because you can talk about anything you want, and it can go into different directions and bring out information in all kinds of areas that people need to hear.
Yes.
Yep.
So, you're not doing a soapbox or whatever you said. Everything you said makes sense, and it needs to be out there.
Well, I wish that there were more people, who are willing to approach those subject matters because, it's just scary when people follow like sheep.
Mm-hmm.
We have a caller?
We do.
Well, come on.
I'm like the Terminator. I'm back.
Well, welcome back.
Welcome
there.
back.
Okay, I just have a couple comments on what you guys are discussing, which is excellent that you are bringing this stuff up, by the way. One, there is no such thing as education anymore in this country. It's now called programming.
Right.
Absolutely.
They're programming the youth. They're programming college kids. They're programming.
Yes, they are.
Two, your take on video games, well, I would have to disagree. That is also programming.
Yes.
And how do I come across that? If you take a look at today's technology in the armed forces, what do you have? You have people sitting in front of computer screens doing remote control with drones and subs and everything else. Our military is becoming mechanized. So the easiest way to pre-train the next generation is through video games. Warfield. If you take a look at one of the biggest, and CJ can even agree with this, is called Warcraft. Okay?
Yes.
That deals with groups of people fighting enemies. And that is what they're doing. They're training the next generation for a mechanized army where people will not be involved. They'll be sitting in front of a computer screen with a remote control and doing the battles. It's disgusting.
Can I ask a question about that? I'm sorry, Frank.
I was just going to say I cannot agree more, and there's a few things about some of the recent training I've been through that would support that. But go ahead, Cap.
Mars, are you still there?
Yes.
My question is, do you not think that sometimes games like Warcraft, the methodologies being implemented by the military with those trainings where they don't go one-on-one and face-to-face with the people that they're killing and causing harm to, do you not think that that is to make it easier
Oh,
to
absolutely.
to absolutely go and be an end game with people that you wouldn't
are
kill
100.
otherwise.
It's easier to kill somebody if you don't have to see them face to face. It is disgusting. And you know what? What's even more scarier is now they have come up with autonomous weapons, okay?
Yes.
Autonomous drones that aren't even under remote control. They go and do their mission using no more than damn software. And how inhuman is that? You know what? Some people need to watch The Terminator, and, you know, even Stephen Hawking has come out and said, you know what? AI will be the destruction of humanity. And unless they get this under control now and start putting limits on it, we're all, well, not us, but the next generation is doomed.
Do you think they have any interest in controlling that?
There was an episode of Star Trek, I don't know if you guys remember, the original Star Trek series, where these two planets had been at war for like hundreds of years, and it got to a point where they didn't fight head to head anymore. They did it on computers, like Mars was saying, and they would say, well, we just bombed such and such area, and all these people in that area, you know, are now dead, and then people would have to go walk into a disintegration chamber, you know, and be killed.
Right.
Well, you know what? This is terrible for me to have to say this over the air, but I really don't care who hears it or what, but because I'm very outspoken too. But there needs to be a political revolution in this country.
Yes.
Because what is going on now, and the type of government we have now, the type of economic system we have now, just doesn't work anymore. You cannot have the top 99% controlling the strings, while the other, I should say, the top 1% controlling the strings of the 99%. That just ain't going to work no more.
Well, I think they need to go in and kick all of them out of Congress and the Senate and all of the White House and start from scratch.
Well, and when you've got the top elite controlling everything.
Exactly.
It goes completely against everything that the country was founded on. It was founded to be a democracy. And, you know, when 99% of the people aren't involved in the democratic processes, then you don't have a democracy anymore.
Well, when you have a ruling elite with no term of office requirements, then that causes that too.
Right.
Even President Jefferson stated that revolution keeps government clean.
Yep, he did.
Absolutely.
He meant it too. He knew what he spoke.
Well, and the thing of it is, and even, you know, even the country's forefathers put it in the, you know, in the Declaration of Independence and in the Constitution, for it to be means to control the reign that the government had over the people.
Yeah.
Because the bigger government is, the smaller your individual freedoms become.
I agree.
Well, not only that, it's the type of, okay, I agree with that 100%. But also, you know, if anyone knows any basic economics here, okay, you cannot sustain a forever growing economy. It just doesn't work. The physics and the math ain't there to support it.
The Germans
just can't go.
Well, there needs to be a term limit on Congress and the Senate and all that, like there is on the White House, you know. I mean, I really do think that they should do a term like the president does for 4 years or whatever, and then run for re-election, and if they get re-elected, they can do another term, but then they got to go and let other people in. It's too easy for them to be able to control things like it is.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you feel that one family in the United States should own 44% of the wealth in this country?
I don't think 1% of the
Well, no, I
country
don't
should
agree
own
with
it.
that, but at the same time, I don't agree with whichever one of them it was that said they needed to do an equalization of income and all that either, because that just gives the people who don't want to get out and earn shit a free living.
Well, I'm not here to preach what form of government is correct. But as far as I'm concerned, one family owning 40% of the wealth in this country is ridiculous. I mean, what we spend on war alone, everyone could have friggin' free health care.
Right.
I think
How
that
does it, this is ridiculous.
Right.
I think that is absolutely true. I also think, though, that because of the mindset that people have come across, which is you have your workers, your producers and your takers, and it eventually gets to the point that Roger was talking about, that when the takers exceed the producers,
Exactly.
the producers are going to stop. And that includes whether it's a corporate giant, the head of a corporation, or
Caller,
someone who is doing that.
Hello, this is Bill.
Hi,
Hey,
Bill.
Hi, Bill.
How you doing, guys?
Good. How are you?
we're
Great.
doing pretty good. You guys, we got about 3 minutes left, so
Hit it up, Bill.
yeah.
That's okay, buddy. I'll make it in next week. I was just
Hi, Bill.
Okay, we got a little overtime.
Hit it up, Bill.
very generous, and thank you very much. I was kind of amazed. I mean, this has been a free-flowing conversation tonight. And when we've talked about the rituals of death with mummification, we've talked about how the form of the human being just doesn't have any right to be the apex predator because we don't have teeth, fur, long legs, extra mean, and don't growl unless we're drunk. And I'm Irish, so I know about that.
Maybe rabbit growl. Yes, Bill.
And then we have we have opposable thumbs and binary vision. It means we can shoot a rock at the big old lion as it's coming to get us, but the lion's going to come and get us. How the heck did we ever get to where we are?
That's a good question.
Then we went from there, okay? We went from there, then we started talking about racial complexities. From racial complexities, we went to cover-ups, government cover-ups. Because, I mean, when you start thinking about race, you start thinking about the things that the next domino to fall was, what is the government doing to us? Okay, because we're all supposed to be like these evolved human beings. Then, of course, I mean, that's everybody's favorite subject right now, and it's going to be for the next year. Oh, God, I hate the thought. But politics and government is going to be thrown in our face. And then we started talking about how are the governments turning us from human beings into sheeple.
Right.
Okay,
Sheeple is a good word.
I'm sorry?
I said sheeple is a good word. I'm not that familiar with that.
That's my favorite term.
I use it in my rants on Facebook all the time. Sometimes the Republicans are sheeple, sometimes the liberals are sheeple. Most of the time, and all the time, it's anybody who actually believes anything is coming out of a politician's mouth. Might as well have him sit there, be going blah, 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 and you be sitting going bah, 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 right back at him.
Right. I think that's about the only true bipartisan thing that you'll see nowadays is the fact that when their lips are moving is the easiest way to tell that they're lying.
Okay.
That applies across parties.
I'm gonna give a call letter break real quick since we're going into overtime. We're live on WCJV Digital Broadcasting out of Youngstown, New York. You're listening to Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio with your host Roger Belt and my guest Frank Lee, Kate Hobson, and now Mr. Bill's with us. So
yeah.
oh no,
Paranormal politics.
Oh no, that'd be mean to me. We're getting back. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, Bill. Go ahead.
No, not at all. And listen, I want to slide off politics too. I mean, this something that we touched so briefly on, okay? But it was actually one of the instigations for the political ravings that we all have just been enjoying so much, and that was ley lines and PowerPoints.
Yes.
Now, there is in the public eye not a big curiosity about this. More people are curious about a lion getting shot in Africa by a dentist than they are about ley lines and PowerPoints.
Exactly.
Okay, so does anyone here in this panel or this group of free thinking people honestly think that there is some sort of concerted effort to push us away from the awareness that there is another power source in the world besides coal, oil, standard electrical generation?
Exactly. Yes.
Yes.
I do.
I just watched a video now that you brought that up, talking about how the energy from the ley lines could actually be converted into clean energy that would not damage the atmosphere, the ozone, people's health.
Would be plentiful.
Yeah. And so free energy is not something they have to create. It's already there.
Right.
Well, that goes back to Tesla's work. I mean,
Yes, it does.
Tesla's dream was to give the entire planet free energy.
Exactly. Clean, free energy at that.
And he, if you look at some of the people, Edward Leedskalnin, Nikola Tesla, even like I was talking about, Sir William Crookes, there's one common thing that always goes. Energy is the key to understanding that is looking at frequency and vibration. And, the magnetic field, the way it works is such a huge energy source that we just completely ignore. We know that when magnetism moves through a conductor, it creates electricity. A conductor moves through a magnetic field.
I don't think we ignore it. I think it's being purposefully ignored because of it means, creating free energy, and the powers that be just ain't going to stand for that.
Right. And I mean, to take it a step further, we really don't know. Your Egyptologists, even your anthropologists, your your archaeologists, they're guessing of what a lot of these megalithic sites were used for. They're complete guessing. It's conjecture. Who's to say that? Who's to say that the purpose of some of these sites wasn't at one time a power grid? The Great Pyramid, for example, was never used as a tomb. There are no hieroglyphs in there. It wasn't ceremonial. It was infrastructure. What was it used for?
Well, and then you have the obelisks and the monoliths. I mean, they're all across the globe.
Mm-hmm.
They are set up as a system of some type.
Right.
So
and, Edward Leedskalnin, he created what the closest that I believe we'll ever see to a perpetual motion machine. Mm-hmm. And he said when he did it that he believed that he had tapped into the same knowledge and the same source of power that the Egyptians were using and the ancients had used. It's there.
It is there.
Well, there's going to be a big piece of Nikola Tesla's technology coming out real soon. and it's going to be in cell phones. You will no longer have to plug your cell phone in to recharge. You will be able to recharge your cell phone over a Wi-Fi network with no connection, no nothing.
Hey, that's pretty.
I love it. But you know, we
Well, yeah, that's pretty cool. But it'd be another really good tracking mechanism from
Right.
Wi-Fi station to Wi-Fi station.
Right.
Right. Yes.
And so
you're
and so
absolutely true. But there is proof that you can transmit power wirelessly. Okay?
Yes.
And that the technology exists.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yes.
agree. That's exactly true.
Well, and you know, the thing with Tesla, he, you know, everybody recognizes his work on transmitting power wirelessly, but he was also dreaming of, you know, at that time, early 20th century, he was dreaming of what we call now the internet. He firmly believed that you could transmit data, thoughts, everything wirelessly.
He also came up with the idea that in the future, he said in the future people would talk without having, you know, any connections to electricity. You know, or without, you know, being hooked up to a wire. So he basically said that, you know, there would be cell phones, basically, in the future.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, Gene Roddenberry predicted that.
Yeah.
Back in the original Star Trek series, they had the global communicators. You remember those?
Yeah, yeah.
So
How many are you familiar with that Nikola Tesla had blueprints of a flying saucer that had anti-grav for it?
Well, we knew that Tesla was working on anti-gravity.
Oh, no, he had a whole... I posted, if you run to... Well, when you got time, check out CJ Mars's Facebook page. Scroll down till you come to Tesla, and in there, I believe it shows the plans of an actual... And it's shaped just like a flying saucer, and it's... he had the whole thing, and it was done with magnetic waves.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And if you notice, all of the major researchers who have come across things like this, Tesla, Lead Skellman, you know, on through, that is the common subject of all of them, are magnetic sources of energy, or how they're doing that. And then look at all of your megalithic sites, and they all have electromagnetic energy that accumulates at those sites where they decided to put those. It's no coincidence.
They knew even back then about those places of power. That's why they built their sites there.
Right. Well, I mean, even look at
Did they know that because they were told that, or did they know that because it was just part of something that was evolutionary to them?
Okay, I think it's just like how some people are psychics and some people aren't. I think they had, like, people probably that could feel the energy source. You know, and they said, this is where we need to do it, this is where we need to build at, you know.
Well, one thing about it, if you look at the ancients, wherever they acquired that knowledge from, they had to have an aerial view of the Earth, for one, and they had an understanding of the planets that we are just now getting back to.
They also had an understanding of this planet that would not be feasible without air transport.
Exactly. Look at the Nazca lines. You know, you couldn't understand any of that unless you saw it from above.
Yes. And from a fairly decent altitude.
Right. Hey, Bill, we're sorry if we overshot you there, buddy.
Oh, heck, look, I'm just loving that the conversation went that direction. Okay? I can't talk politics with you, Roger. You're too good of a friend, and you don't know enough.
Well, this is a non-political. I told CJ this is a non-political show. This is a paralytical show.
There you go.
Paralytical. I like that. Yeah, we're all paralyzed.
So we're going to talk about viewing Nazca lines way up above and stuff like that.
Well, I will say this about politics, and not only politics, but society and culture, as we've seen as a whole over the past couple of decades. We see an increase in crime. We see so many things that have changed, and I think it goes back to a collective consciousness and a change in frequency and vibration.
Well, I'm going to say one thing about politics, and then I'm going to go back off into my alien saucer and view the Nazca lines. Politics is nothing more than two butt cheeks standing up waving at each other. End of discussion. Now,
yeah, and unfortunately, those butt cheeks have a butthole in the middle. Have to deal with them.
Yeah,
that was Gus.
They have this geyser of stink that comes, so they both smell. Anyway,
that would be the propaganda factory.
Yes.
I'm up here looking at the Nazca line, seeing which strip I want to land on. Okay, take off.
You know, I had a friend that recently investigated the Nazca lines, as well as the elongated skulls and that type thing for a program, and she was just fascinated. And she's fascinating. But, you know, that's just one of those things that her specialty is ufology.
Right.
And she didn't approach it that way. She approached it simply as a science, and how did this evolve? You know, how did this get here, and how did they know to do this? There's stuff up on the side of a mountain. It's not just all laying down on a desert floor.
Exactly.
And it's just fascinating to me, and it just drives me crazy because I can't comprehend what would have had to happen to make all of this when people didn't have means of transportation, and they didn't have means of communication, and they didn't have the internet, and they didn't have engineers that could go from place to place to place easily to help other engineers format, you know, the designs and solidify the plans, and this is how you're going to cut this stone. And, you know, I mean, this was some serious work duplication happening in places that no one could even get to.
That goes back to what I always said. They had some help from not of this planet.
Well,
somebody with more intelligence than they had.
Well, something
or did
else.
They have that intelligence? I mean, it's just an interesting concept.
You
well,
know,
not only
talking about the ley lines, the power source, I read something somewhere, or it was either in a video or I read it or something, talking about how extraterrestrial ships, if they say that they think that they have some kind of magnetic propulsion system or something, they would come to, you know, if they were like in the area per se, they would come to these magnetic crossroads to recharge their ships and whatnot, you know. Which would make sense, actually.
You look at the human race as it evolved and the power sources that were used during that process of evolution.
Mm-hmm.
The first power source that humans used was the burning of wood.
Right.
We burned wood, and it kept us warm at night. We were able to expand the zones that we would consider habitable because we could stave off the cold of winter. And because there was no competition by other humans for that space, we burned wood and we killed animals and we lived. We had a high protein diet, and during the year we could plant food So there was the next step. We were able to store energy in the form of berries and seeds and vegetables. And so we got more power from the plants. We look at food as a power source.
Yeah.
Right.
Then we found out that these black rocks burn. These black rocks burn so hot that the rocks that we use to control the fire and keep it from catching our huts on fire would sometimes melt. And we found out about copper, and then we found about bronze. And I know this is really, really simplifying, okay? But I'm doing this because we have to go from burning wood to nuclear power, so there's a lot of jumps in here.
Yes.
And there are a lot of pullbacks. There's a, wow, look how much we knew when we took blocks stone blocks the size of a 4-story building, laid on its side, and moved it so that you could not put a playing card between one and the one above it. Okay? And we somehow developed a power source that was able to take, and remember, seeds are considered a power source. Meat is considered a power source. We developed a power source that we have completely forgotten.
Right.
We did not write down how we got the power. We did not, through racial memories, pass that on. There's not an oral history of it. It just happened. So we were going in a direction, and then something came down and just squashed that knowledge. It absolutely removed it from the human genome. Because we sat there, we looked at it and wondered for thousands of years, how did they do that? And now we're trying, because we have conquered the atom. We're trying to recreate the ability to do that, and to this day, to today, in 2015, we cannot build the pyramids.
Cannot replicate what they did, no.
We cannot do that, and it is not that they did not have the ability. This is something I said earlier, and this is just a belief, and please understand, this is not like I researched this, and I'm not a scientist. But I believe that there was communication between all of the pyramid cultures. The communication and all engineering is function follows form.
Right.
Something about these pyramids performed a function for a society in Yugoslavia and a society in Egypt and a society or group of peoples throughout what we call the North American or the Western Hemisphere. All of these things performed a function for them that made it worthwhile to use what energies they used to create it.
Now, I have a question about the ley lines and the crossings, and I brought up about how they knew to build their sites, their cities on these ley lines. Is it possible that the person whom, as I said, could sense these energies also have figured out a way to use those energies to maneuver those large stones around?
Absolutely, and I believe that a group consciousness with intent was required.
All concentrating on the energy from the thing,
The last magic in the world, the last magic available to us in the world right now, because we have scientists, we have measured ourselves out of spirituality.
Yeah.
Right.
If you cannot put a ruler up to it and tell me how many inches it is, if you cannot put it on a piece of paper and say this is how much it weighs, if you can't write it down, it doesn't exist. And I think everybody in the paranormal field at one time or another has felt that frustration.
Right.
Yes, sir.
I am an empath. My empathy is nothing to do with my spirituality. My spirituality is I know that there's something other than what we touch, measure, feel. That's my spirituality. My empathy is the ability to recognize my spirituality.
Right.
If there were 100 people, and I'm not saying that I'm any different than anybody else I'm talking to here on the radio, if there were 100 people who are like-minded and we had the intent to move a thing and we knew how to plug into some of this ley line energy, and I never say ley line without
I would agree with that.
PowerPoint. There's ley lines and PowerPoints are synonymous. Think of it only as a crossroads. When you're on a road, that road goes straight. It's so wide and it's so long. When you come to a crossroads, it gets wider at that power point. That's a power point.
Yes, it is.
Okay? It's not magical, the sun shines brighter on this spot on Earth. It's a cross of two lines that becomes a power point. Not all things are created equal in the world, I guess. It's just, world just isn't fair. Some power points aren't
So if
astronomical.
enough people say in a certain culture,
then they're useless. They're just a battery that's sitting on the floor. It's not plugged into the bunny.
That's what I'm saying. If enough of people in this culture at that time, and let's just say for the sake of argument that this person who was an empath or whatever in the group who realized the energy was there, could not teach these people to how to concentrate on this energy and work as a group to create the energy to move these humongous stones that they moved.
Have you ever wondered why it is that every religion has these incredible secrets they just will not share?
Well,
every
that's because they're
religion,
like
beginning of time. It's their magic.
It's the magic.
Exactly. It's just like a magician don't want to show his tricks, you know?
Right. Well, some of that I can see as being fakirs. Okay? Not fakes, fakirs. Okay? Where the guy turns the stick into a snake and then he sticks his hand in clear water and suddenly it turns to blood.
Right.
Okay? That's fakirs. Some of these things may indeed be the secret that was easy. It's easy to squash a secret if only one person knows the secret. You understand the math of what I just said? If some guy is a high priest and he's the only guy who knows the way to tune the harmonic tuning fork or whatever it is, and this is just, again, I'm simplifying it. Okay, he's the only one who knows where the secret tuning fork is held. And you kill him, nobody finds the tuning fork, and when they find it, they don't know what it's used for.
Right.
So that secret is gone forever.
Okay.
And it's protected proprietary knowledge because the guy is gone and there's nothing written to take care of that.
Right, because you don't write your secrets down.
David brought up a point that if one person who can tap into the ley lines can use the people's energy channeled through them, they might not necessarily know that their energy is participating in what's going on.
They just think that they are doing the harvest moon dance.
Right.
Or they are walking down following the guy with the sensor in the dress with the funny looking hat, and that's all they're doing. But actually under the stones of the chapel that are built to such and such with these big flying buttresses and the God antenna on top, there's something about what they're doing that's going to add energy
They're working the magic
to the entire community.
Exactly. He's taking energy from them without their knowledge, using that energy with his own and the force from the ley lines to create a tool to do what he's trying to do.
Right.
And maybe that's also why they don't want to reveal the location or where it is of the Ark of the Covenant.
Right. Excellent add to the conversation, because that Ark of the Covenant might be that tuning fork I was just referring to.
Exactly. Thank you.
Right. It's the communication device.
Well, talking about the Ark of the Covenant, if you think back to the description, people who touched it improperly were stricken dead.
A nuclear device.
It seemed to be some sort of nuclear device because a lot of the symptoms that are talked about in the Bible are the same symptoms of radiation poisoning
and all that.
But something else. Now, talking about the like the pyramids and so many of the ancient sites. I keep talking about Edward Leedskalnin, and I would encourage everyone listening to Google him and check out some of his work. He single-handedly built Coral Castle in Florida.
Yeah,
and
I've been there.
He built that by himself, and he wouldn't work during the day. He only worked at night. Right, and he was not a very strong man, but he claimed that he had tapped into the same power source that was used to build the pyramids and many of the other megalithic sites. Now, the only people who ever seen him working were some of the neighborhood kids. And they, of course it got dismissed as wild imaginations, but they swore that they seen him levitating the blocks into place that he used to build the castle.
Now, what if he had the same powers as one of these, let me just, for the sake of political correctness, let's just say he was one of these priests in Egypt of Horus. Okay,
right.
That's the name of an Egyptian god I can remember. Okay, and this guy had these fantastical powers, and his powers were multiplied the more people were involved in what was going on, and he wasn't afraid of showing them because he was the high priest. He got to dress funny and he ate well.
The dressing funny would be the best part.
You're from the woman, okay, and when I said ate well, Roger giggled, so I'm good. All right, everybody's happy with this theory.
There you go.
And he walks over and he says, we're going to take this stone, or we're going to go and cut this huge stone. I'm going to perform a miraculous feat. I'm going to take this stone and I'm going to move it, and I want all kinds of people to come here and see me do it.
Right.
Well, as everyone shows up for the show, okay, just like in the circus, all right, when a circus comes to town, they send that parade down the street, and thus a religion is born.
Right. Right.
Everyone follows the wagons down the street to the big top tent, and then the guy who's dressed funny standing in the middle and says, I'm going to take this stone and I'm going to move it. And everyone's like, ooh, and that's all he needs. He just got the little bunny just turned on, the battery was twisted just right, and he starts banging on the drum, and he moves that block using that power that he just got from all those people around him. He just became the leader of a religion. He just became a cult favorite, okay, like Blue Oyster Cult. He just became a cult favorite. And he takes and he stacks one stone upon another.
And he started playing rock music.
Absolutely, absolutely. This guy could, that would be cool. Bunch like Vestal Virgins with lyres sitting in the background. Ooh. Look, it's too easy to distract me, Roger. You're not being funny.
Yeah, kind of he is.
So he hangs one stone on top of another, and he starts saying, I'm doing this, and y'all got to help me do this, and this is what's going to happen. And they had mud pits, and there's evidence of mud pits, and there's evidence of these huge communities that were built up, and they're finding them in the sands surrounding the area of the deserts, just like they're finding things around all of the megalithic monuments that are throughout Europe. They're finding communities that had to do the manpower to do this. I'm not saying this is the only thing. What I'm saying is that, as Roger has indicated, there are certain people who are able to tap into this thing without special training or special equipment.
A natural ability.
And those natural abilities, and these people are able to go one step beyond the average person, and thus they get elevated within their communities. Now, I use religion as an example. It's easier to say that, but they could be the head builder. They could be the pharaoh. Okay, Pharaoh is supposed to be a representation of God on earth. That's the same reason why when they were doing their blood sacrifices and stuff like that, right?
If that priest told them, get so-and-so and hold him down on this block, and when I give the word, I'm going to cut his beating heart out, we're going to offer it up to the gods that gave me this authority over everybody,
Right. But that's sort of like using the circus to control people, don't you think?
And they would do that.
Right.
Because he was the man with the power.
I have a question.
Sure.
When you are talking about the communities that are being found around the monolithic and pyramids sites, not only have they found human occupancy traces and villages and whatnot, we were talking earlier that they have also, despite years of previous research, recently found a new double layer, basically, monolithic layout. Yeah, but there's one under the first one, you've got Stonehenge, and then I can't remember the Sterling Hills or whatever that was. And then there is another one under that is bigger than all of them.
Right.
And so, now you've got, if I'm following the conversation right, I think I am, now we have a community and a history, an unknown history, that built 3 within a 5-kilometer radius over eons. I mean, over an extraordinary length of time.
They used to build cities on top of the ruins of cities. So you may have 3 ancient cultures thriving in a city built on top of the city of the past. You know what I'm saying?
But they're building the same thing. They're maintaining that historic behavior.
And a common practice back then was when, say one city was conquered, they would go through, they would change, they would destroy anything that maybe referred to that culture's deities or religion and replace it with their own, and they would change a lot of that sort of thing. Like at one time, the Sphinx had a goatee.
Right. But I mean, these aren't changing the physical style. I mean, they're still there. They weren't raised.
I think that what might speak to this is genetic memory. So let's say that there was, I'm not intimate with the specific place on Earth that you're talking about, but the oldest was the biggest. Is that true?
So far.
Okay, and then the second one was almost as big as the first one, but not quite as grand.
I'm not positive of that, but could be.
Okay. All right, so...
And then Stonehenge is kilometers across the way from that, and it's smaller than the others.
Right.
But is the genetic memory the same or operationally the same as collective consciousness, almost?
I can see a lot of that being similar to each other, but if you have my great-great-great-grandfather told a verbal history of there being a place of great worship in a very successful community that lived in this area, and they built this, and it's all tumbled over. The rocks are too big for this smaller community the currently smaller community to replicate, but they can do something like that with a little bit smaller rocks and a little bit more people and a little bit more effort, and maybe not as gifted a mover as move the big rocks. But the reason they're going to build on this site is because this is the site where the really successful people built the really, really big one. So they're going
kind
to
of
try
like
and
music,
replicate it.
making fun of, making money off of other people's writing.
Right.
Hollywood.
Okay, we're live on WCJV Digital Broadcasting out of Youngstown, New York. This is Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio with your host, Roger Belt, and my guest, Frank Lee, Cad Hobson, and we have Mr. Bill with us. And we are into the third hour
of our 2-hour program.
Conversation. Man, we covered a lot of stuff.
Right.
Well, I want to stay with Bill on
get back to
this.
paranormal.
Now I want to stay on this for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating.
Well, let me throw a question out there, and just kind of get the three of your opinions on it. We've talked about how did they know where the magnetic sites were to build these megaliths, but maybe what if it wasn't so much of a select few? Because like many people going to Stonehenge report having spiritual experiences there.
Sedona.
Exactly. The man who is credited with discovering the ley lines, had a vision right outside of Stonehenge, which is what that he credited for giving him the knowledge of how they worked and where to find them. And later on, he went through and actually put it in writing, and come to find out his vision was correct. Well, what if, so to speak, sort of like when you go to a new place, like with us being from the South, if I go somewhere in the North, I'm going to be in a cooler climate. I'm going to, at first, it's going to be miserable, but after a while, you get used to it. What if in today's society we have so many power lines, so many cellular signals, so many different sources of interference? It's not that we don't have the ability to detect, that all of us don't have that ability per se to detect these places, and that maybe just a few can do it. But what if most of us over time have just became so desensitized because of all of the outside interference?
Very good question.
Very good point, because that is when you go to places that are extraordinarily strong with that energy.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody has the ability.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. I think everybody has the capability. And my husband, who is not the least bit, or will tell you he's not the least bit sensitive, doesn't, he's my biggest skeptic. He's the best evidence reviewer a girl could ask for because of that. But he walked into the Cathedral of the Cross in Sedona, Arizona, and was extraordinarily moved by the power there. I mean, I think people can feel it if they get away. I don't think it's an absolute fact that they won't get that back.
Well,
I think that you have to remove yourself from the interference.
Also, when you're in, and this is just a thought here, but you're in a congested area with hundreds of thousands of people, and of course you've heard the theory about governments doing something to dumb everybody down. And I typically believe that. I think they want us to all be dumb as a box of rocks, you know what I mean, so they can control everything we do.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But you get away from that, and you have basically that freedom to, open your mind, then things are different.
Right, absolutely. And what about, have you ever tried to focus on one sound in a noisy environment?
Yes.
It doesn't work so well, but you eliminate all of the interference, all the extra noise, and you can do it. And our bodies themselves, we work off of electrical signals. Electrical signals make for perfect natural detectors of geomagnetic and electromagnetic activity. That's in our core biology, down all the way to a cellular level.
Well, I just want to say that there is a species still on this planet that is able to do that very well. And it's migratory birds.
Yes.
And homing pigeons, okay, that read the magnetic line of the planet very well and can tell where they are anywhere on the planet. And with this note, though, guys, I need to back out of here. This is excellent. So you guys continue on. I need to back out. So thanks a lot.
Hey, Mars.
Thanks,
Hey,
Mars.
Mars.
Thank you very much for your insights.
Hey, Mars, before you go, there's one thing I want to add to what you said. The same protein, it's believed that birds can actually literally see, to a degree, the magnetic field. That same protein has been found in human retinas.
Well, here's another one. You talk about interference? Well, let's take a look at, remember when this was happening? When they had thousands of birds fall out of the sky for no reason whatsoever. They were not sick. they examined them, they could not figure out why that happened. When people came out of their houses, there were dead birds throughout the entire town, and no one could figure out why. Well, maybe it was like the interference you're talking about. And with that note, guys, continue on with the conversation because it's excellent. Talk
Thanks,
to you
Mars.
later. Thanks.
Thank you.
I was going to add to that what Mars was talking about with the town people coming out and there being, dead birds. That's not an isolated incident.
No.
That has happened several times in different locations.
Okay. Well, and let me just throw this tidbit in. What if not only birds? Think about this. How many times have you seen a flock of thousands of birds? How many times you ever see them crash into each other?
Right.
Don't.
But now, if they follow magnetic lines, and I won't throw this in, if they follow magnetic lines, what if something we did screwed up the magnetic energy that they were following, and they were just like, dumbfounded?
Right. Exactly. And let me say this: if they can use that for location or for navigation, but yet you see all these thousands of birds, how do they take off, land, everything else without colliding into each other and all of that and still work in perfect unison? What if they're not only using that magnetic energy for location and navigation? What if they're also using it for communication?
Absolutely. And it would almost have to be that, in my opinion.
Sometimes as we try to understand things that are really, really bright, we have to dumb ourselves down in order to go back to the cause of, or the base of, root of, the origin of that light. Wow, did I repeat myself enough there?
I think we stayed with you, though.
Oh, yeah.
Because here's where it is. Everybody who's we're talking to right now, and whoever might listen in later, we are standing in an artificially energized space. Because where I am, I'm up here in Massachusetts. It's 11:15. I have the lights on. I have my computer on. I have just had a dynamite bowl of soup my wife made for me. I got an aquarium and a fan and an air conditioner going. All of these things are adding to what I consider a normal condition. Now, I'm sorry to wander with this, but let's go out into the woods. Let's go out into the middle of a darkened woods where the canopy of the leaves blocks out the sun, or blocks out the stars. Blocks out the stars. We're not close to the brook. We can't hear it. We sit down, and now we are in an environment that is not modified through electricity or heat or power or air conditioning or entertaining phone conversations. It is you and nothing else. But the minutia of the energy that's running through the trees, the energy that passes from the earth into the roots of the trees. And I'm not being esoteric with this. I'm not being tree hugger with this. There's a little bit of energy that we cannot measure. This goes back to measure, so forgive me, please. There is a little spiritualism in here. But you can't measure it because we haven't developed the instrument to measure it with yet, but there is energy there.
Yes.
I feel this energy.
Yes.
That is why Roger kept on going back to there's somebody who had to know about this ley line being here. That minutia of energy set that person apart from everybody else.
Yes.
That person senses the ley lines. The birds sense the magnetism in the earth. We haven't figured out how to measure it, so we put it off as an aberration. It's not useful to us because you can't fly a jet with a pigeon as a pilot. So it's not useful to us today. But at one time, it may have been because we don't know how they built those pyramids. We don't know how they built those monolithic things, and we don't know why they built 3 ever-increasing or ever-decreasing rock monoliths in basically the same area. I mean, within, what'd you say, a couple kilometers?
Right. About 5.
All right, tens of thousands of years passed from the first one to the last one, and yet it's still one similar to all of the other two, or the other two function, follow, form. Is there something about standing rocks in that circle that gave power to the community of people that took the time to do it? And I don't have a statement with this. I don't have an answer for it, but it's just what an interesting question. If one considers there is always some form of energy around us, and we have stomped out different ways of utilizing that energy the way we have stomped out different civilizations as they have come and passed.
I mean, equally tragic.
So I'm sorry to ramble on there. That's an epiphany that went absolutely nowhere.
It was a great one, though.
Joy.
Oh.
I'm glad you shared that.
Well, and to go with that, think about this. Where does everyone go to unwind, to relax, you know? Think of when you're in a place like you described, where you're in the woods. Well, that's true too. But think of when you're in the woods, you're isolated, you're away from the phones, the internet, all the hustle and bustle. And
what do we call that? Getting back.
Yes.
We're getting back to nature. We're getting back to what matters to us.
And have you ever noticed how when you're isolated like that, how much more clearly you think?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
It's almost as if the same interference that we talked about earlier that might be keeping you from sensing these ley line locations, things like that. What if it's interrupting the clarity of your thought processes?
You brought that up, and that makes me think. Those hot spots that I've talked about that I've found before, where the energy is ionized, you can feel the energy, and everything's just like real quiet, peaceful all around.
Right.
It's always in the woods when I find these. Always. It's never been on a street.
So you are a sensitive, Roger.
It's never been on a street or around any buildings, any kind of where there's lots of people. It's always been when I've been out in the woods somewhere, away from everything.
Now, how ironic that you feel the energy, and it's in an area where there is no measurable energy.
Yes. It's like you have to get off the grid to connect.
Yeah. But I mean,
oh man, I love that idea.
The first time that happened, it was like, wow, I never knew, anything like this existed.
Right.
And I didn't want to leave. I wanted to stay in that spot, because, I mean, everything was like, you didn't have a worry in the world. It was peaceful. It was calm. You didn't hear any sounds, like any nature sounds, anything.
Right.
And you could just feel the ions in the air, the energy in the air. And the first time I ran into that, I did not want to leave. I swear I could have stayed there. I would have never went home.
Magic. I mean, that brings to mind the fairy circles of Ireland. Okay, where there were places where people would go to cast spells or to be energized or to demonstrate dominance over a certain aspect of a community. These fairy circles were extremely powerful, and because Ireland wrote it down and said, oh, there's fairy circles, it's not an Irish event. It happens throughout the world.
Right.
So,
the only place I ever run into one, and there were houses, but they were like not right on top of it. But it was at the very back of a cemetery. There was like a couple of trees there. Then we were doing some EVP next to a soldier's grave or something. I don't remember, but I went to move, and all of a sudden I stepped into this this thing, and my daughter was with me, and I told her, I had mentioned this to her before, and I said, just reach your hand in and touch me where I'm standing, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And she reached in and grabbed my arm, and she's like, "Wow, what is that?" I said, "That's what I've been trying to explain to y'all that I've found in different areas. There's nothing else like it. You just, it's kind of like taking a trip. You know what I mean? You're not any longer in the realm that you normally live in."
Right. You got to be careful when you use words like that, Roger, because I survived the 70s in my 20s.
But you know what I'm saying? It's like going into another dimension or going into another world.
Absolutely. I have an address in the world, and I go into this place, and when I enter that building, it is Dorothy throwing open the Kansas farmhouse, and I'm looking into Oz. And it's in Metro color, and I always talk about this place when I get on here, but yeah, that place is, for me, that place that you spoke of before, and it's got all of the what you would call atypical battery places. It's got a quartz granite foundation. It's got the history of at least 8 deaths on the property. There's water running under the ground, maybe about, I want to say 150 foot from the front door. It's at a physical crossroads. It's maybe about 150 yards away from a Native American burial site with a church that's now sitting on top of the burial site. There's all kinds of different, all of the cliches just seem to come into a perfect storm to bring this place to where it is. And some of them are real, some of them are just made up, some are superstition, but they were all there.
Well, my point was, when I brought that whole thing up, was Frank was talking about ley lines, and I'm thinking, could it possibly be that these spots that I hit like that are ley line crossings, like in the woods or, wherever I run into them at?
Right. I believe that ley lines and power points are exactly the same thing. It's just ley line is a power point that goes from place to place. Power point is where 2 ley lines cross.
And that's why the energy there is ionized, and it's like really. And another point about these places, I can go into one and I'm only there for a minute or two, but I feel like I've been there for an hour or two.
Absolutely.
And when I come out of it, I feel energized, ready to go. Hey, let's go, I mean, I'm ready to go take on the world,
Right. Well, then you know why I love that other place then, because I'm ready to take on the world when I go through there. I go absolutely manic. When I'm in there, I talk at it, not that I talk real slow, fast now, but I mean, I talk at a mile a minute. I'm going warp speed. You guys from down south must have a hard time keeping up with me because I bump my consonants and vowels together so quickly. But, I do. I mean, I go into that place. I come out for the next 2 or 3 days. I'm like a child diagnosed with ADHD and no Ritalin in the house.
There you go. Yeah. So all these things occur to me in just wave after wave of, hey, maybe this is, and hey, that would go. And it's really hard to follow a thought from start to finish when I'm all juiced up like that. Oh, if you couldn't tell, I went there 2 days ago, so.
Well,
that explains a lot, Bill.
I wish I could get everybody who's on this radio show right now to sit down in a living room or around a campfire, and we just sit there and just solve all the problems of the world. I know it would turn into a time tunnel. We would sit down at 8 o'clock at night. It'd be 8 o'clock in the morning and say, okay, who's going for coffee? And nobody would want to stop.
Right.
Because this has been an awesome experience.
And I tell you what, this has been one awesome show, you guys. I appreciate it. I mean,
thank you so much for letting me call in.
we've talked about so many things, and it's all fascinating. And I love the ley line stuff anyway, because that's where all the ancients built at, and I know that's why they built there, because they used that power to levitate them blocks. They had to have.
Absolutely.
You know, there's no way they could have manhandled those blocks like that. So, you know, that's pretty interesting.
Well, I'm going to say this. If mainstream science wants to understand ley lines, if they want to understand the way that that these sites were built, and so much about that, science has a lot of great minds. There are some great thinkers. The problem is there are so many that have tunnel vision. If it's a biologist, so to speak, it could be from perhaps, they're looking at everything from just this standpoint. If it's a geologist, they're looking from just a geological standpoint. The problem is they have to cross lanes and compare notes more. And we've got to understand more about ley lines. We need to look at our own biology. Yeah. To understand more about our own biology, we need to look more at ley lines and energy. We are connected to our environment in so many ways that you need to understand Earth to understand the human body.
Right.
And it, in a way, sounds very complex, but really it's a simple idea. You've got to understand us, but you've got to also understand how our environment, how everything around us affects us, and learn and study that interaction.
That's an awesome statement, Frank, and it's so accurate.
Well, what's nice about this is it's recorded, so we can write this down and plagiarize the heck out of him after this.
I know, right?
That is a wonderful
She's a friend. He
and
doesn't care.
I really do. I ascribe to everything that you said there.
Well, I'm all about, I hope that something I say tonight, triggers a thought in someone that's out here in the field, maybe gives them an idea. Maybe they can take an idea that I've shared and take off with it and run, because that's how we've all got to get, that's how we're going to get the field where it needs to be, is by helping each other, working together, sharing with each other.
Well, it's not about the individual.
No.
No, and that's the problem. See, if more people would come together, the things we could do is just unimaginable.
I agree.
Well, science
everybody's
requires
out for themselves nowadays,
Yep.
Science requires measurement. One of the things that we can measure in a scientist is his success, and it's not on how many theories he's had that have been proven, but how many decimal points to the right we push the decimal point in his balance.
Right.
He said, okay, and let me just point to something that was so incredibly clumsily handled, and that is Thomas Edison and Tesla.
Oh.
Yes.
Thomas Edison created a power system that required an investment of money, copper wires, and a filament bulb. He didn't invent the light bulb, he just found out a way to take advantage of the light bulb and make money. So who was the greater inventor, Tesla or Thomas Edison? Well, everyone knows Thomas Edison. Tesla is sort of the poster child for us paranormal folk. Okay?
Right.
He's our hero, okay? But if you ask somebody who's in the banking industry, they will definitely point towards the nuclear power plants, coal power plants, hydroelectric power plants, dams, this, that, and the other thing, the wires that were blocking out the sun as they passed overhead in New York City. Thomas Edison did that. What a great man. What did Tesla do? He tried to give people free power, and he's got one tower out in Jersey, and that's it. How great was he?
He was genius. That's how great he was.
He was genius, but he did not make money with his genius.
But I don't think the intention was to make money with his genius.
Well, Tesla, he only wanted to make enough money to fund his research and continue
Right.
it. He was.
Guys, hey, I hate to interrupt, but we're going to have to shut this thing down.
Yep. Well,
I know everybody's all into it, and so am I, but yeah, we're going to have to say our do's and fare thee wells, and
Well, that was the fastest 3 hours in paranormal history.
man,
so,
up to
Thank you all very much.
4.
Thank you, Bill.
yes.
It was
yes.
wonderful
And if
to
you
be
want to hear
included in
more,
this conversation.
and if you want to hear more, we'll be around Bill's campfire.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be so cool.
That would be so
Stop
cool.
on up. I'll go chop a couple of trees down. We'll have a great night.
Sounds like a plan.
I'll
Sounds
bring
like
the
All
a
right,
coffee.
great
then.
plan.
All right, y'all. Next week, a good paranormal friend of mine is going to be here. Janice Brunner-Fries. I don't know if any of y'all know her.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, she's going to be
Very
my guest next week, and lots of interesting places that her and her team has been to. We're going to talk about the Sally House a couple of times.
She just finished an investigation there, didn't she?
Yeah.
That's going to be awesome.
But anyway, we're going to talk to her next week. I've enjoyed this immensely.
Mm-hmm.
Me too.
We need to do this again real soon, y'all.
It's
All
been
right.
too long
Sounds
since
like-
we had a round table.
Yeah.
Well, I know I'm going to be there for Janice's show, and I look forward to it.
Awesome. And I know Frank and Kat will be there, and hopefully Deborah Jane can be there. And Jesus was going to come on tonight, but he had a dinner date that he forgot about until his phone buzzed and said, "You have a dinner date." But anyway,
You know, I still just really enjoy getting to say Jesus is here with us.
Yeah, and I told CJ, I said, well,
Nice.
because he told me he was coming. I said, Jesus is coming. She said, hallelujah.
And he's bringing Bigfoot.
Yeah.
I love that guy. He's amazing.
He's cool. I like him. But anyway, I'm going to say fare thee well. Thanks, everybody. Frank, Kat, William, we appreciate it very much. Couldn't do a show without you guys. All you people listening in. CJ in the background there. Dita, my sweet.
Mr. Mars?
Mars is already gone. Everybody listening in via phone, tablet, computer, whatnot, however you're here, we appreciate you. Come back next week. And we're out of here.
You are listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York, the CJ Mars Radio Network.